Okay, welcome again. We were left at the actor-observer bias as it is observed in relationship context, in romantic relationship context, and we learned that it's being observed more between intimate partners than non-intimate partners, but conscious effort can minimize it, but it cannot disappear at all. Okay. Another attributional bias is the so-called self-serving bias. So what is self-serving bias? Self-serving bias is the tendency to attribute one's success to internal or dispositional factors, such as I got an AA because I studied hard or I am intelligent. My positive outcome is because of me, my internal characteristics, or it's the tendency to attribute failure to external or situational factors, such as I get an F because the exam was hard, or because the teacher asked multiple choice questions, whatever. So this is typical self-serving bias in educational context, which all you know. Why do we have self-serving bias? Because, as you would remember, all human beings have a major tendency to enhance themselves, which is called self-enhancement motivation. We are motivated to maintain our self-esteem and keep it high. We would like to define our self-concepts in positive terms. We would like to maintain this positivity and so on, so that we all evaluate ourselves at the highest extent possible positively. So that's why we have self-serving bias. Partners in relationships are observed to take credit for themselves if the relationship goes well. We have a very good relationship because I am a very understanding, considerate, sensitive person. Okay, but when things go wrong, they blame each other. So the relationship goes bad, but because my partner does not understand me, she is overcritical, and so on and so forth. So this is self-serving bias. Why? Because people try to enhance themselves. And when they fight in the relationship, partners believe it's the fault of the other partner. So again, these are fracture points. These are faults that we have in our relationships. We should be very careful about our ways of attributing the causes of behavior. That's why communication becomes an important point in human romantic relationship interactions. So we will come to the communication processes in relationships next week. So perhaps you can keep these new pieces of information about perceptions in relationships, and you understand the communication processes from this perspective. Now, in a relationship, what happens in terms of attributions? Now, what we know is that depending on the quality of the relationship, people employ different attributional processes. Look at the white side of this figure, okay? If the relationship, the couple's relationship is a happy relationship, highly satisfied relationship, positive mood helps us to interpret the behaviors of the partner in positive terms. This kind of attributional pattern in relationships is called relationship enhancing attributions. So we make such attributions for our partners that we enhance, we make the relationship stronger, in other words. So if the partner's behavior is positive in a happy relationship, we interpret the behavior, the positive behavior of the partner in terms of internal, stable, controllable factors. Internal, stable, controllable, typical effort attribution. Or, sorry, not effort, typical personality ability attribution. And we make the partner in the relationship a predictable entity in our lives by having an enhancing attributional pattern like this. If the partner in a happy relationship displays negative behaviors, then happy other partner would attribute this negative behavior to external, unstable, uncontrollable factors. So if I'm happy in my relationship, I'm more likely to attribute a quarrel and anger uprising behavior, upsetting behavior of my partner to external factors. Probably she had a bad day today. unstable, external, and uncontrollable. So it is perceived as an exception. And as you observe, both the internal stable, controllable, and external unstable, uncontrollable attributions for positive and negative behaviors of the partner, respectively, are relationship enhancing attributions. These keep our positive thinking in the relationship, and it influences our communication styles, it influences our behaviors towards our partners if we are happy. So happiness, once achieved, is maintained through these kind of relationship enhancing attributional patterns. So happiness in a relationship brings about happiness further, okay? What about unhappy relationships, unsatisfied relationships? This time, what we observe is the so-called distress maintaining attributional pattern. So when there is a distress, some conflict, some stress creating event between the partners, if it is a dissatisfying relationship, now this time the positive behaviors are attributed to external, unstable, uncontrollable factors, exactly the same for negative behaviors in happy relationships. So my partner does something very good, but I say it is an exception. I don't take it as granted. I don't come to perceive my partner as someone very good, someone who has a very good personality, very considerate, very sensitive personality. Rather, I say she did something very good today. Perhaps it is by chance, or perhaps it is just an exception. Most of the time, she doesn't behave in that good manners. I'd attribute it. And for negative behaviors, most importantly, we make blame attributions, internal, stable, controllable attributions. She shouts at me because she's a rude person when I'm unhappy in my relationship. So these are called distress maintaining attributions. And if a relationship is a dissatisfying relationship, it keeps on becoming more dissatisfying in time just because of our attributional pattern, which is distress maintaining. So the ways we explain our own behaviors and our partner's behaviors strongly influence our future satisfaction in our relationships. And once we are satisfied, it's more probable that we're going to become more and more satisfied. And once we are dissatisfied, it's more probable that we're going to become more and more dissatisfied, given, of course, exceptions. That's why communication is important. Okay, now having learned about attribution patterns in relationships and how it influences our satisfaction in our relationships, now let's move on to another mental structure, which is called beliefs in relationships. In this context, basically, I'm going to talk about romanticism as one belief, which is kind of more acceptable, perhaps, in terms of its positive outcomes. Romanticism is some belief which contains statements that there is one perfect true love, and true love can resolve any problem, and love at first sight is possible. It sounds good, but although romanticism is important in relationships, sometimes these simple, very innocent ideas can turn into some dysfunctional beliefs as well. Some dysfunctional beliefs are investigated by some researchers, relationship researchers, and these are literature-based dysfunctional beliefs, such as disagreements are destructive. These are tautologies or generalizations, as you observe, okay? Disagreements are destructive, always. A generalization. Mind reading is necessary. Couples or partners should read their minds to understand each other's needs. Partners cannot change, an assumption on the nature of human being that he or she cannot change no matter what happens. In a romantic relationship, sex is an important component, and sex should be perfect every time. Men and women are different. We talked about this mythology at the start of this course, as you would remember. Men are from Mars and women are from Venus. This is a wrong belief, a dysfunctional belief. It means that men and women cannot understand each other, whatever they do. And great relationships just happen. You don't have to put effort on it. It happens so. No effort is attributed. So as you observe, these dysfunctional beliefs have different kinds of attributions associated with them. And these dysfunctional beliefs are negatively correlated with marital adjustment. That's the important point. If we are holding such beliefs strongly, if we believe disagreements are destructive strongly, if we believe mind reading is essential, if we believe sex always should be perfect or great relationships just happen, the more we believe in these dysfunctional beliefs, we are less satisfied with our relationships because of the reasons that I just talked about. And what is marital adjustment then? Marital adjustment is, as Idelson and Epstein measured it, or measures it, how happy are the partners with handling conflicts, displaying affection, philosophy of life, dealing with in-laws, etc. In a marriage, for instance, in-laws, ne denir? Kayınanne, kaynana, kaynata, kayınvalide, kayınpeder. They are in-laws. So there are different problem points which may rise time to time. If I believe disagreements are destructive, then if our philosophies of life are different, then I would more likely be dissatisfied with my relationship without putting any effort, because great relationships just happen, okay? And then it is more probable that our relationship will dissolve in the future. So dysfunctional beliefs influence our marital adjustment. And according to a specific piece of research, if people hold such kind of dysfunctional beliefs, specifically mind reading expectations, remember the dysfunctional beliefs again, mind reading is essential. My partner should understand without my saying what I need at this time, okay? So this is mind reading is essential dysfunctional belief. And if I expect my partner to read my mind so that I'd be happy in my relationship, if I expect this more and more, I would feel more upset when my partner gets into struggle or gets into conflict with me. I'd feel more angry, more depressed, more disappointed, because I expect her to read my mind, and she expects perhaps to read her mind by me. So this creates negative feelings. Mind reading expectations creates negative feelings, and these negative feelings especially results in two dysfunctional behavioral strategies in dealing with conflict in relationships. One is called silent treatment. Silent treatment means you are upset by your partner, you don't say anything, you don't talk about anything, you don't even verbally or non-verbally, even non-verbally get into interaction with your partner. So this is ignoring the partner. It works. How? It works in such, it works, although dysfunctionally, that you are ostracizing, okay? You are excluding, rejecting your partner, but your partner does not have any idea about why, because you expect her to read your mind, okay? Because she made you upset. And this creates a need in the other partner to ask for what's happening and so on and so forth. This is not a good strategy to handle relationship conflicts. That's why silent treatment is observed more when there are mind reading expectations which result in more negative affectivity. And another perhaps undesirable strategy in handling conflict is combative treatment. Combative treatment means that getting into struggle, creating more and further conflicts with the partner just because of feeling upset. So as you observe, the more we have dysfunctional beliefs, the more we experience negative affect, and the more we engage in dysfunctional strategies in maintaining our relationships. Another relationship belief typology is provided by Nee. These are implicit theories about relationship. What is an implicit theory? Remember, human beings are naive scientists. They try to understand the world around themselves, okay? And we develop certain theories in our minds. For instance, we might develop a theory that a relationship is something we or individuals are destined to have. And if a relationship is good, it's because of destiny, or if it is bad, it's because of destiny. This is called the destiny belief, okay? And destiny belief is our implicit theory about how relationships form and are maintained or dissolved. Whereas There are growth beliefs as well. Growth beliefs come to formalize relationships as constructed and maintained by the efforts of the partners. So in destiny beliefs, we believe that relationships are fixed and unchangeable. They either start and go well or not. No need for effort. So this belief brings further belief or expectation that whatever we do, it wouldn't change the situation. It happens by itself. But if we have a growth belief, we accept in advance that relationships are formed, maintained, and experienced by our own efforts, mutual efforts. So it shows, or it brings out the further expectation that it depends on our choices, it depends on our effort to change the status of our relationships. So destiny beliefs, as the research suggests, were associated with disengaging from the relationship. Disengagement means stopping the relationship and restraining oneself from maintenance attempts. So when there is a conflict in a relationship, we may have effective communication with our partner to solve the problems that we are experiencing. Or perhaps if it is a stressful situation, we may cope with the stress through more effective strategies, problem-focused solving, talking together, trying to understand each other's point of view, and so on in communication. But if we have destiny beliefs leads us to withdraw from the relationship, like silent treatment, or we do not try to maintain the relationship when there is conflict. We do not have any constructive effort in the relationship in response to a negative relationship event. Whereas if we believe in growth, if we have an implicit theory of growth beliefs in our relationships, it is associated with endorsement of relationship maintenance strategies. So we put effort to keep our relationship going, including activities such as active coping, planning, and suppression of competing activities. What is a competing activity? If I know that some activity that I do will upset my partner, in order to maintain my relationship, I may, for a time at least, when things come normal again, I may choose not to engage in these competing activities. And it would help that my partner will not be any more upset with me, and then we can start talking about the issue. So what kind of an implicit theory we have about our relationships is important in our efforts for maintaining our relationships. Now look at this graph here. This is a very specific finding in terms of the relationship between initial satisfaction with the relationship, the belief in destiny theory, and longevity of the relationship. Longevity means how long the relationship is maintained, whether the relationship is intact or it is dissolved. So maintaining longer relationships is associated both with satisfaction and belief in destiny. So if people are initially dissatisfied with their relationships at the very start, if people are dissatisfied with their relationships, and if they have a high destiny orientation, then it doesn't go very long. The relationship is quickly dissolved. Whereas if that person has a high destiny belief, and as you observe, if the initial satisfaction is high, now this is assimilating to existing schema. It just happens. I have nothing to control. By chance, I have a good relationship. I'm satisfied with it. In the long run, then I will have a good relationship. So destiny beliefs can decrease longevity if initial satisfaction is low, and it can increase longevity if it is high, depending on the satisfaction level. But if the person does not believe in destiny theory, then what we observe that if the satisfaction is low, it still goes on, the relationship still is maintained for a long period of time because the person does not believe in destiny. The person most probably do something to maintain the relationship, and it's not that much different, as you observe, than having high initial satisfaction. So to summarize this graph, No matter how satisfied we are with our relationship at the very start, if we don't believe in belief worldview, it goes on longer. But if we believe in destiny worldview, if our initial satisfaction is low, the life of the relationship is low. But if it is high, then the life of the relationship is high. So destiny beliefs can influence how long our relationships will be maintained, depending on the initial satisfaction level. Expectations are also important in any human interaction, and one specific expectation-related social psychological phenomenon is the so-called self-fulfilling prophecy. A typical example about self-fulfilling prophecies given in education contexts. In education contexts, when teachers believe that some students have higher abilities, they behave in such manners to these students that in the end, these students become successful because of some teacher practices. And then when they become successful, the teacher says, okay, you see, I knew she was an intelligent or she was a successful student. So this is called self-fulfilling prophecy. What happens in self-fulfilling prophecy is this. The person forms an expectancy about the target. Now think about relationship context. She develops an expectancy about the target, he, in a heterosexual relationship, he is a kind person. Just because of this initial first impression, a stereotypical or perhaps casual knowledge or prior contact with this person, the person acts in such a way that his behaviors starts kind behaviors in the partner. So if I believe my partner is a kind person in advance, then perhaps I behave very kind to her because she's a kind person and deserves to be behaved kind. And receiving my kind behaviors, she starts behaving in a kind manner. So the target interprets the perceiver's behavior and responds, usually in a reciprocal fashion. As I behave kind, she starts behaving kind to me. As if I behave hostile, in a hostile manner, she behaves in a hostile manner. And just assume that I think my partner is a kind person. I behave kindly to her because of my belief. She perceives and responds in a kind manner. And I interpret the target's, my partner's behavior such that she is a kind person. I knew this, okay? She was a kind person. So this is self-fulfilling prophecy. It can work in a positive or negative manner. And self-fulfilling prophecies can influence our relationships. Now, in this model, you observe the result of an empirical research by Murray, Holmes, and Griffin. This is one of the classical studies in social psychology literature about the nature of idealization. Idealizations actually work as or function as self-fulfilling prophecies. Now, look, what does that graph or this model say? It says that there is, in a heterosexual relationship, there is a female self and a male self. And these two people evaluate their different characteristics. They have different self descriptions, let's say, okay? Let's just follow the female path, okay? She defines herself as, let's say, kind, considerate, helpful, and so on and so forth. Does that influence the stability in relationship? No, it's not significant. How I define myself as a female or a male partner in a romantic relationship has no direct influence on the longevity of my relationship, its stability, whether we keep on being relationship partners or not. So the important point is not how I define myself in my relationship. How about ideal partner description? So ideal partner description means I use certain personality characteristics or attributes in an ideal partner to evaluate it. I have a schema about ideal partner. Does my schema about what makes an ideal partner influence stability? No, neither for women nor for men. It's not significant, okay? Statistically significant. So stability is not caused by my self-definitions, nor it is caused by my ideal partner definitions. So what is the predictor of stability? there is only one direct predictor of stability, which is partner's perception of the target, the other partner. How I perceive my partner has direct influence on stability. Now, this is idealization, okay, here. So as we observe, the ways we come to define our partners in relationships influences our relationships. So this is an important point because not the personal characteristics, not the ideal partner definitions, but the perceived partner characteristics predict the dissolution of dating relationships in this research. So the sample was dating sample in this specific example. So idealization seems to result in self-fulfilling prophecies. If we perceive our partners closer to our ideal definitions, okay, or if we perceive our partners as having certain positive qualities, no matter they have them accurately or not, it is more likely that we maintain our relationships. Perhaps when we perceive them having certain characteristics, our behaviors do change in such a way that receiving these signals from us, they behave in our expected, they behave in a manner that we expect them to behave. This is called self-fulfilling prophecy. And this is some data indirectly at least suggesting that it is important how we perceive our partners in romantic heterosexual relationships. So, perceptions about other people include self-perceptions. Now, here, finally today, we will focus on perceptions about ourselves. Now, I'll first talk about self-enhancement and self-verification motivations again, so that we remember them, because they have very important influences in our relationships, sadly, let's say. Now, what is self-enhancement first, before we go through the details of this table? Self-enhancement, again, is our motivation to define ourselves positively, maintain this positivity, and have high self-regard for ourselves. So we try to define ourselves positively, we try not to define ourselves negatively, and we try to define ourselves more positively and less negatively than other people, which is called the better than average effect. So this is the self-enhancement motivation. We try to keep the positivity of our self-definitions. Self-verification means that we have existing self-schemas. We have existing self-definitions. These definitions can be positive or negative or mixed. Just assume we have a positive definition of ourselves. When we get into interaction with other people, if we receive positive feedback from other people, it means this positive feedback fits into our existing schema. So we would like to be with such kind of people because they verify our existing self-views. If we have a negative self-definition about ourselves, then the correct feedback from the other people would be negative feedback because it would fit to our existing self-schema. Now, we have the so-called cognitive affective crossfire phenomenon. When we receive positive feedback about ourselves, then that's good, okay? We feel good. If we have a positive self-concept, we feel good. If we have a negative self-concept, we feel good because somebody says something positive about ourselves. That's our affective reaction. But we also have cognitive reactions, such as, is this feedback accurate about me? Now, that's the point where things change. If I believe I have a positive self-concept, and if I receive negative feedback, I reject it. It's not accurate, I say. And if I have, now that's critical, if I have a negative self-view, and if I have received positive feedback, I feel good, but the problem is it's not true. Now, this experience of negative self-concept people receiving negative feedback about themselves creates a cognitive affective crossfire. They don't like to hear about it, but they know it's true. So how do they choose interaction partners then? Okay. Do they choose their interaction partners to enhance themselves, or do they choose interaction partners to verify themselves? Now, the sad point here is that we are actually a little bit realistic and a little bit conservative about our thoughts about ourselves. We don't want to change our thoughts. Now, look at this specific research finding here. In this experiment, the participants were given a list of personality characteristics, and they were asked to evaluate each personality characteristic to the extent that they have them. So these are called self-evaluations, as you would recall. Okay, so there is a list: intelligent, hardworking, mean, Jimmy, whatever. There are some positive and negative characteristics, and I rate them in terms of defining myself. Okay, so if I have high ratings for certain characteristics, they are my best attributes. Okay, and if I have some low ratings or high ratings for some negative attributes, it means they are my worst attributes. If I say, yes, I am 7 out of 7 intelligent, it's my best attribute. If I say I'm 7 out of 7 insensitive, now this is my worst attribute. I guess that's clear. So I have negative qualities, which I believe I have, which is a negative self-view, okay? And I have good qualities, which I have, it is a positive self-view. Now then, my self-definitions are taken by the experimenter, and I'm told in the experiment, okay, now I'm going to take to have some evaluations. There are other people in other rooms making these evaluations, and then I'll come back in the lab and I'll provide you with the profiles of 3 other people, okay? And I would like you to choose to whom you would like to interact with in the future. Now that's the critical point as for relationships, okay? Whom do we prefer to interact with? And when these profiles come, the experimental says that, okay, and I'll give you your profile to other people as I will give their profiles to you, and these other people will evaluate you in terms of your favorable, in terms of your best or worst attributes. So if the other person evaluates my best attributes favorably, okay, if I say I'm 7 out of 7 intelligent, and if this person says intelligence is a good quality, now it means that I am receiving from this person a favorable feedback. So if my profile is evaluated by other people favorably and unfavorably, whom do I choose to interact with? So these evaluations can be in such a manner that my best attributes can be evaluated favorably by other people, so they may provide positive feedback for my good qualities, or they may provide positive feedback for my worst qualities, or they may provide negative feedback for my worst qualities. Now, if my best qualities receive positive evaluations from other people, this is self-enhancing and also verifying feedback. If I receive positive feedback from others for my negative qualities, this is enhancing because it's favorable, but non-verifying person. And if my worst attributes receive negative feedback, I say I am some sort of insensitive person, I receive negative feedback about being insensitive person. Now I receive feedback such that it is not enhancing, but it is verifying. It maintains my existing self-view. Now, there are 3 different people in the other room, so-called, okay? And the experimenter provides me 3 different feedbacks, and I'm asked to choose by comparison with whom would I like to interact with in the future. Now, look at the results. People prefer enhancing and verifying people, other people, to interact more as compared to non-enhancing and verifying. So if we have the opportunity to choose among interaction partners, we choose people who both enhance and verify our existing self-views. Now look at the second comparison. If we have chance, we prefer enhancing, verifying people to non-enhancing but verifying people. So if we have chance, we would like to receive positive feedback, okay, from other people. It should enhance. That A means enhancing. But look at this comparison, B versus C, meaning someone provides a good feedback, positive feedback about our worst attributes. It's good to hear, but it's not true. or another person provides negative feedback about our negative views, about our negative qualities. It's not good to hear, but it's true. Which one do we prefer? As you observe here, 2/3 of the participants preferred this person who gives negative feedback, which makes us feel bad, but which is true. Now, that's very important because when choosing interaction partners, if we do not have the opportunity for enhancing ourselves, we choose to verify ourselves. Now, just think about a romantic relationship. If one partner has a negative self-view, and if the other partner provides negative feedback, this partner, the other partner who provides negative feedback, is preferable because he or she tells the truth. But the problem is, it feels bad. Okay? So this would create a cognitive affective crossfire in the relationship context. And actually, in relationships, what kind of feedback or what kind of motivation drives us, it changes depending on the status of the relationship. If it is a dating relationship, our commitment to a partner increases steadily no matter we have a positive or a negative self-concept, if the partner provides positive feedback, okay? So in dating, we would like to hear good things. We need self-enhancement in dating relationships. We might have a positive self-concept or we might have a negative self-concept. No matter, we would like to hear good things from our partners when we are dating. But in a committed marriage, now, the pattern changes drastically. In a committed marriage, if we have a positive self-concept, we would like to have good evaluations from our partners. But if we have negative feedback, as you observe, our commitment to our partners decreases when we receive positive feedback. It means in marriage, people, although it creates negative emotions in them, if they have negative self-concepts in marriage, they would like to hear feedback which fits their existing negative self-views. Now, that's a huge emotional burden for such kind of a person. So having a negative self-concept changes the way that we would like to hear things about ourselves from our partners. And if we have negative self-concepts as individuals, our relationships would become somewhat burdensome because we would like to hear negative evaluations so that we are committed to the relationships. In order to maintain the relationship, people with negative self-views would like to hear negative feedback, it means, to maintain their self-schemas. But if they hear good things, they don't accept it as true, as accurate, so their commitment decreases. Perhaps some marriages or some relationships, committed relationships, especially marriages, are not dissolved just because people keep on having negative feedback from the other partner. It becomes an unhealthy relationship to a certain extent, and it is also unhealthy to leave the relationship, the marriage, to get divorced, for instance, just because our partner is trying to keep his or her positivity for us in his or her evaluations, but it doesn't fit to our self-views. So this is an important point we should keep in our minds. So although a relationship is a dyadic interaction, in this dyadic interaction, how individuals come to perceive themselves influence their relationship outcomes. Okay, so that's for today. And thank you for joining. Next week, we're going to talk about communication, and see you all next week. Bye.